sustainability, but refine our conversation on the role of infrastructure. Our next panel is titled Sustainability Innovation Unleashed: How do we sustain our climate in real time? We'll discuss what kinds of infrastructure will be needed to secure our future, what sort of impact and efficiencies we want to design into that infrastructure, and how it can be funded. The discussion will be moderated by a real expert in the field, Dr. Bo Bai, Executive Chairman and co-founder of MVGX, the Metaverse Green Exchange in Singapore. He was previously a partner at Warburg Pincus, where he led its investments in the energy, industrials, and business services sectors across Asia. Please welcome Dr. Bai. Handsome, right? I was thinking the exact same thing. No, yeah, he is pretty.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It's really a great pleasure to be here, to be the first Super Bridge event. So very excited. So let me first introduce my fellow panelists. On my left-hand side is Kyle Timmy. Kyle is the managing partner of RA Capital, really worked in both public service, entrepreneurial, and investor capacity, and served as the CEO of Liquid Light, a CO2 to chemical company, which we'll be pretty excited to hear more about, and a partner of Breakthrough Ventures in the past. On my further left is Kevin Lee, who is the chairman of Moja. Kevin has over 25 years of experience as entrepreneur and active biotech investor in both the US and China. In addition to be the chairman of Moja, he is also the co-founder of Lease Capital. So welcome both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may kick off today, I think let me start by giving both of you just to have a very short overview of what your company does and then what you're trying to achieve. Go ahead.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm Kyle Timmy. I work with RA Capital Management. RA Capital has been around for more than 20 years. It's a multi-asset, multi-stage investment platform. Originally started with human health, and a few years ago added a strategy related to what we call planetary health, really with the realization that it's great to cure cancer, but not if civilization is burning. And at the end of the day, there's this strong connection between the health of the environment, the health of people, and the healthy economy. And so we're making investments towards a healthy environment that will have benefits across all of society.
Thank you, Bo. I'm Kevin Lee, chairman of Moja Biotech. Moja Biotech is a biotechnology company developing green solutions for the production of bulk chemicals. Our goal is not only to develop processes that's green and and energy efficient, but also use renewable carbons. We have labs in the US, in Singapore, Shanghai, and 2 manufacturing facilities in China. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So let's get started. First of all, let's stare at the elephant in the room. We're based here. UAE has committed to reach net zero by 2050, which is a fantastic vision that is followed by increasing Gulf states. At the same time, we are fully aware that the petrochemical industry is still the dominant industry for most economies in this region. So the elephant in the room is, now what? Dominated in petrochemical, on the path of net zero, what are the activities, technologies, and potentially new chemical industries that can help the region toward net zero? If I may start with Kevin.
Sure, thank you, Bo. I mean, it's really great to hear everybody's concerned about sustainability. You're going to have COP28 here, and that really is very comfortable to a company like us, like Moja Bio. We relied on petrochemistry for the last 100, 150 years and generate everything we have today. And I think that will continue for some time, but we do need to wean off from carbon source as soon as we can. That's what we're trying to do. Mojiao's contribution to the field is probably coming from the material side. So other than energy, which is probably the biggest contribution to CO2, material, everything we see around us is mostly made of petrochemicals as well. And so what we're trying to do is, number one, trying to replace as much of the chemical process as possible, and number two, use as much of the recycled carbon as much as possible. That's 15 to 20% of everything that's produced. And it's happening really fast, and we start to produce many of the stuff that you see in front of you. For example, polyurethane that makes all the carpet, the leather, the foam, your shoes, and that will be, to a large extent, biomanufactured with renewable carbon as we launch our products. And then we start to see in the agricultural space, for example, we're trying to replace as much of the plant-based nutrient with chemicals that's also greenly manufactured as well. So I think that will, with our technology, do our portion of the contribution. Thank you.
If I may follow on that, you said all the efforts of trying to recycle carbon and then really absorb carbon. So Kyle, you have been both an entrepreneur in that whole space of sequester carbon dioxide for chemical purpose, and then over the years with a breakthrough venture partner, which is one of the most leading early stage technology play investments. And they have seen gazillions of different type of carbon to useful materials play. Tell us a little bit more about the fascinating technology that you have done, you have founded, and just in layman's term, so that we appreciate all these efforts that are going on right now for this purpose.
Yeah, thank you. So at the end of the day, this usually comes down to the cost, right? So if you're dealing with energy, if you're dealing with basic materials, you have to have something that's going to be cost competitive, ideally cost advantaged. And so much of what's worked to date that's related to the petroleum industry has been something that actually enhances the production of petroleum, right? So something like enhanced oil production, you take the CO2, you put it underground, you get more oil out. There's some CO2 benefits associated with that, but it doesn't quite get to where you're indicating we should be going and what Kevin was talking about. It's helpful, but it doesn't quite get you there. So actual CO2 utilization, one of the big challenges in the past was people said, I'm going to take CO2 and I'm going to turn it into something directly competitive with oil. I'm going to turn it into fuel. I'm going to turn it into ethylene, which is the building block for most plastics. It's really, really, really difficult to compete economically with this, going this pathway. And that was a big mistake of the last clean tech cycle. People in venture capital just said, ethylene's a huge market, and if we just throw money at smart people, they'll be able to win in that market and get 10% of the market. It doesn't work that way in commodities. So what we've learned since then is target the products, target the markets where you can actually win. And if you start with CO2, which is one carbon with 2 oxygens, you should probably make something that also has oxygen on it, right? Because it's different than something that's made from pure carbon. And some examples I could throw out, there's startups now that instead of chasing fuels directly, are going to perfume. They're going to beverages. They're going to higher value products that allow them to come down the cost curve in production. And by coming down that cost curve, they can eventually become cost competitive with the large scale commodity pieces. And I think that actually going back to what Kevin's talking about, I mean, he's going after higher value chemicals. And that's a way to get into a space where you can first have an impact while being profitable, because without profits, you'll never have impact. And then use that to get to the larger markets.
Fascinating. So actually, Kyle's comment reminded me of the days when I was working in the States in 2005 to 2010. We invested in technology companies such as shale gas, shale oil, which was very, very profitable investments. But the whole clean tech investments, particularly the early efforts of trying to decarbonize the petrochemical industry, with those technologies were unsuccessful mostly. So, Kevin, what happened over the past decades? Is this just because you guys are smarter, or what are the secret technology advantages that has made this possible now?
Thank you, Bo. I think there are a lot of factors. I fully agree with Carl saying that you need to have, in order to build a sustainable company to begin with, to contribute to sustainability, we have to last ourselves, and that is of people, planet, and profit. Profit is a critical pillar to sustainability of our company. A lot has happened in the last 10 years that enables us to do a lot of stuff. Like this field used to be called green technology, industrial biotech, now it's called synthetic biology, so all sorts of names. But I think synthetic biology, availability of a lot of genome data, the ability to predict protein structure, manipulate protein structure, chromosomal structure, all these came out like in the last 5-10 years, and that drastically increase our ability to manipulate any organism that we want to do. And number one. Number two, you really have to think out of the box and to be creative. When we're trying to say we're trying to make bulk chemicals, we're not really making flavors or fragrances. That does not make a dent to CO2. So I mean, for us, it's going to be 100,000 ton plus type of materials. In order to do that, you're going to have to not only disrupt the current chemical process, which rely on high temperature, on high pressure, and some catalyst, but also the traditional biomanufacturing process that's based on fermentation. Because there's a basic energy need, material need, size need, capex need in order to do traditional fermentation. And we have to go away from that, and that's what we've done. So our criteria for any process, any product that we bring to the market is number one, it has to be cost competitive versus the chemical process. We don't want to rely, we cannot rely on green premium. Okay? That's really a problem for many of the first generation companies. And number two, you have to be able to performance competitive with the chemicals. You have to, if it's a new material that's bio-made, it has to perform the same or better. And number three, Carlo and I were just chatting, you have to talk about the capex expenditure, the revenue capex ratio, I would say. It has to be very reasonable because otherwise very few people will give you $1 billion on the plant to bet, can you scale this up, right? So number four, this process has to be very scalable from the lab to mass production. So all those has to be fulfilled to really build a biological plant that's competitive with chemistry. And the beauty of this, once you can do it, is actually biomanufacturing can be very much distributed. It can be co-localized with consumption. And ideally, you want to be able to use feedstocks that's locally available, right? So all those, we have trying to figure it out with an incredible group of people around the world. I'm very lucky to be working with them.
Indeed, speaking of a feedstock, of changing that industry, you have abundance here in this region. Allow me to maybe broaden the topic from petrochemical to a bigger space. Our company, MVGX, based in Singapore, but really to be the Asian version of Carbon Direct, focused on measurement, certification, registry, and also building exchange focused on the green assets only. We always think about the decarbonization journey of corporates include the whole process of define, measure, mitigate, offset, and then certify and finance. So my really probably the last one or two question to you is share with us some broader example of either your clients or the company you have invested in or some of the technology they are looking at that you think will be very meaningful to set as a good example for the next probably 5 to 10 years in the whole decarbonization journey process to find ways to be able to drive this economically and then fast and then also to fight against any greenwashing. How you feel me?
Sure. It's almost too easy. Just kidding. When you start applying different tools to the problem, I think I heard this on the last panel, there's many, many problems you have to look at, right? So some are going to be best solved with biotechnology, some will be best solved with material science or chemical engineering, what have you. There's certainly quite a few problems that are best addressed by digitization, automation, artificial intelligence, and some of these tools you're referring to. I mean, first and foremost, it's really hard to solve something if you can't measure it. right? And so digital tools are excellent when put in conjunction with sensor technology to measure problems, report problems, and so you get into the entire MRV space there. And another recent example I would give is an investment we did that's focused on lowering the costs and increasing the availability of critical minerals, particularly non-ferrous metals. So these are things like aluminum and copper that are kind of ignored, but are very, very important. If you want to do anything in decarbonization, electrification, you need these materials in vast, vast quantities. And this specific investment we did was utilizing machine vision and some sensor technology to be able to sort scrap metal down to the alloy level, which allows you to have much higher rates of recycling, much lower rates of new material that has to be mined. This gives you both an advantage from carbon emission standpoint and from a cost of production standpoint. So the producers win, planet wins. That's the kind of thing that we're very excited about at Planetary Health.
Maybe that's a question you should answer about digitalization. So I think it is, as Kyle says, I mean, everything has to be measurable. So our Mojaz company motto is to demand-driven innovation, right? So everything you do has to be, there's a need for it, rather than something we thought somebody will need. So we talk a lot with our downstream potential clients. And one of the things they want to know is how measurable is the result, right? So everybody needs to have their carbon footprint calculated and needs to work into their supply chain. So I think being able to measure every step that we do and what you guys do, actually put a fingerprint on it, and that's is going to be very, very important.
Let me make the last question maybe a little bit more controversial and then also hopefully more hopeful. Kyle, you came from Boston, where I spent 4 years and really very, very fond of. And then to a great extent that, Kevin, you still work in China. So US versus China in this whole effort of trying to lead
The answer is Dubai.
industry toward the decarbonization globally. Who do you think will win? And then what role can places such as Dubai to play as a bridge? China goes first or US goes first? First economy, please.
I'll go first. The answer is Dubai. So I think this is, I mean, I'm a US citizen, sorry. But I run a multinational company, right? So we have, I'm having this conversation like in public right here, and I'm concerned, right? So the only, on the CFIUS list, the only word that's related to biology is SynBio. So what is SynBio? I can't think of anything that's not SynBio. So everything already invested in, everything that we do in healthcare is synthetic biology, right? So I think that's a very tricky question. We have our lab in Florida, we have a lab in Singapore, let's say, and then our manufacturing plant in Shanghai, in China. There's no way, in the near term, there's no way US biomanufacturing can beat China. Okay, we got everybody from SAB, the best people from all the world, visit Singapore, visit Shanghai, China, and the fixed infrastructure to do, let's say, a lysine plant is 25% of that in the States or Europe. And, I mean, we're talking about $1 billion investment, right? So I think in terms of the bioeconomy that President Biden has been promoting, innovation, infrastructure, skilled labor, and policies, all of these, other than innovation, the US has none of those three. And that's an opportunity for many other countries.
Sounds like, Kevin, you're convincing Kyle to move to Shanghai. Are you
working
buying?
on it. I mean, what I would add quickly is we're talking about global problems. Global problems require global solutions. And so you can't have a situation where one country chases decarbonization and another country does not. We ultimately have to work together to solve these global problems.
Indeed, on that note of working together, we, Asia Green Fund, which I founded, we partnered with a subsidiary of PIF and Saudi Aramco to have bought a US company, a subsidiary of DuPont, called DuPont Cleantech, and then we're building our factory in the Middle East. So events like this, where Dubai serves as a bridge, is really extremely important to bridge the East and the West to jointly drive that efforts toward decarbonization. Because after all, no matter West and East, US and China, Dubai, we're on the same earth. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.